start the recording now. So this is a recorded Zoom. It is a Zoom meeting format. We love to see smiling faces if you want to have your camera on, but you can have your camera and microphone on. So we do ask that you make sure that you're muted. And then I will introduce the topic of the webinar. This is our webinar on the Office of Disability Resources and all of the resources that are available to you through that office here at the University of Mary Washington. It will be given by our lovely Associate Director of Disability Resources, Jennifer Uber, and I will let her take it away.
Thank you, Jenny. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. As Jenny mentioned, my name is Jennifer Uber. I'm the Associate Director here in ODR. I actually also have my new colleague, the newest Assistant Director of Case Management, Tobias Connor, is also with us. So he's going to be monitoring the chat and then also assisting with answering questions at the end. But hopefully our presentation will answer some of the questions that you guys submitted ahead of time, but if not, we are more than happy to answer any additional questions. The only thing I will say is that because this is being recorded for privacy purposes for your own child, if you have any specific questions about your child or your child's situation, to just contact us separately, like either email or give us a call, and we're happy to talk with you about your child's specific situation rather than in the Zoom. But if it's a generalized question, we are more than happy to answer that. So let's get started. Share my screen. All right, can everyone see this screen? Yep, thumbs up. All right, so there we go. So for tonight, the agenda is going to be, we're just going to go over the staff, like who our office is, the location, what we do as an office. We're also going to go over the big changes between high school and college, what's expected of the student, what students can expect from their professors, the registration process with our office, and then we'll talk about some additional UMW resources that we find helpful, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have. So hopefully we can get through that. So first and foremost, this is the ODR staff. Alex Eklund is the director. Myself is the associate director. And then Tobias, as I mentioned earlier, is our new assistant director of case management. And then Danielle Tingler is our assistive technology coordinator. And Greta is our operations and testing manager. And so I took everyone's picture from the website and put it on there so they can all hate me later. Our office is located in Secobeck Hall. It's Suite 005, which is the ground level of the building. Our entrance can be found on the right side of the building if it's observed from College Avenue. So I have the red arrow right here on the top photo, pointing exactly to where our doors are. And then the lower photo is the entrance to our office if you were coming from the University Center, or the UC as they call it, or CRUC even, from inside campus. So that door is there. And then the third picture on this slide is of our office on the inside. So this is the waiting area. So if and when you come visit us in person, this is the area that you will come see. So, and we do have signs posted outside the building to guide visitors in the correct direction. So what is our role? So ODR helps determine appropriate accommodations. We obviously ensure ADA compliance so that students are getting the accommodations that they need. We are also making sure that the accommodations are appropriate for the college setting, which I'll explain a little more as we go through the presentation. We also work to empower students and promote self-advocacy, because now that they are 18 and over and adults, they need to speak up and advocate for themselves, which is definitely a skill to learn, and it's not something that's easy for a lot of people. So that's why we like to assist students with doing that. Promoting an environment where disability is welcomed and respected and appreciated. So we do our best to make sure that students and staff and faculty feel welcomed and that they belong here at UMW. That's very important at this university. So we also help with building partnerships within the university and the surrounding areas. So, we try to make sure that different departments and different organizations are, able to work with us. And we also try to educate on accessibility for students, faculty, and staff as well. So those are the the key things that we do in our role here. So the big changes. So the biggest one is that it goes from IDEA to the ADA. So that means that we focus on equal access versus a guarantee for success. And what does that mean? That means that we provide accommodations that ensure that the student has equal access to the same material as everyone else. But they then take that material and with the accommodations still need to show that they can be successful with those accommodations. If a student does not pass a class, they have the right to not pass the class. Like that is their choice as an adult, whether or not they can pass the class. But with the accommodations, it's to help them, give them an opportunity to show that they can be successful with that. So additionally, documentation must be submitted to show eligibility, which means that they need to notify us that they are an individual with a disability and have the documentation to support that in order to receive accommodations. Whereas in IDEA, most students, I believe, were tested or you went and provided them to the school. Or even a teacher might have been like, hey, I think your kid needs to get tested, or something like that. Whereas here, they have to self-identify. Student self-advocacy, it's their responsibility. So as I just mentioned, it's their responsibility to come to us and notify us. We will not read an admissions application. It's not actually even asked on an admissions application. It's illegal to do that. And if so, it's important that a student reaches out to us. In addition to that, it's their also responsibility to notify their professors. We have a system, an electronic system where students can do that, but it is their choice whether or not they want to notify the professors that they need accommodations. It's actually illegal for us to do that because it would be breaking their confidentiality. So it's their choice whether or not they want to do that. The parental role. So instead of being, at the IEP meetings on behalf of your student, the student is now the one that needs to be at that meeting, and you become the support cheerleader and coach. So you assist with the self-advocacy part of it. You can certainly be involved in the meeting if the student wants you to be involved in the meeting. We certainly do not deny that, but if a student is like, no, I want to do this by myself, then we'll have to say, sorry, mom and dad, you can't be in the meeting. But that's up to your student. And like you guys are in a very important role because for a lot of students with disabilities, when they come to college, they're kind of navigating like, do I want to say anything? Do I want accommodation? Should I try this on my own? And so this is where you guys are really important in helping students sort of navigate that, thought process, hopefully navigating them to it's better to have the accommodations and try them and give yourself the best chance of being successful. Or, if you have them in place that you are kind of like, okay, well, now they're in place. So if you need them, it's a lot quicker to put them in, implement them, than if you have to wait and do this process later. So those kinds of things. Studying and time management. So for studying, it's very time spent in class. That's what it's supposed to be. Toby, those got switched. So time spent in class. So for every hour that's spent in class is, I think, 2 to 3 hours outside of class. So it's important that they understand, or students understand that, it's not the same as high school. Like you actually have to put a lot of hours in. Like if you're taking a 3-hour lab, that means 6 hours outside of the lab class is what you need to be spending on studying for that. And then the time management is unstructured in the sense that your classes are no longer 7:30 to 2:30 with back-to-back classes or a study hall thrown in there. You might have a 9 a.m. class and then an 11 a.m. class and then a 3 o'clock class. And you can choose what you want to do with that time. It's up to you. And so that's why figuring out how to manage that time is going to be extremely important. And parents can also help you with figuring that out too. And then instructor feedback. So it's not always going to be uniform. So not every professor is going to, give an assignment back in a timely fashion and or with a grade on it. They might not also post their grade as quickly as other professors, and then some of them might not give a lot of feedback, like on a writing assignment or something like that. So if that's something that you're used to getting, this is where you would need to schedule time to go to the professor's office hours and talk with them about this or ask for feedback, as it's not something that's required of every single professor in a certain way. What's expected of the student or of you? So check your email, your UMW email specifically, your UMW, check your UMW email. We communicate directly with students that way. So parents, if you reach out to us, if we don't have a consent form signed to be able to respond back to you, we actually have to forward the email to the student and say, hey, we got this email from your parents. Here's our response. Please let your parents know. Because without that consent form, we are not able to communicate with you. And for the UMW email account, that is how the university as a whole will reach out to students. If you are going to have issues with remembering to check your UMW email account, then I would recommend forwarding those emails to your personal email account because that is where everything goes. All of the important deadline emails, all of the emails from us saying, hey, send your letters. I can't stress that enough that it's important to check it. So accommodation letters must be requested by the student through the Accommodate portal each semester. So as I mentioned before, we have an electronic system. Students need to go into the Accommodate portal and request their letters. We cannot do that for the student, and we cannot send the letter to the student. The student has the right to choose what accommodations they want to send and which professors they want to send it to. We always try to explain to students it's better to send your letter, all your accommodations to all of your instructors, but again, they're an adult, it's their choice how they want to do it. Students are also responsible for knowing deadlines and policies. So deadline for registering for classes, deadline for submitting a housing application, deadline for filling out your FAFSA for next year to get student loans. So those are all things that they are responsible. Those are just a few of the things that they're responsible for, but deadlines and policies are on the student to know. Also, if they're having difficulty, students need to contact us. You know where we are now. I went over, we even showed you beautiful pictures of the outside of our building. So, you need to contact us, send us an email, give us a call, because if we don't know that you're having any difficulty, there's not anything that we can do to help you. And that's part of the self-advocacy is reaching out early on and not waiting until the last minute to do so. Also, you're expected to check the ODR website and the Accommodate portal for resources and updated information. So when we have finals, we will put like a banner up that says like final exams are, this, or like you can start scheduling your final exams, or reminder, send your letters to your professors. So we post those different types of things, and we also add resources to our website. So it's important to check those often as well. So what you can expect from professors. So instructors don't automatically implement your accommodations without first talking to you. So you are responsible as the student for reaching out to the faculty. So after your letter is sent electronically, I tell a lot of students you can send like a follow-up email and be like, hi, Professor Smith, I just wanted to confirm that you received my accommodation letter. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, or if you'd like, I can schedule a time to talk with you during your office hours. And that's that. And then you can go talk with them during your office hours. For the most part, if you have like extra time on exams, it's pretty self-explanatory for a lot of professors. So they're able to just be like, yeah, hey, here's what you need to do. But if you have more intricate accommodations, you may need to actually go and talk with the professor and have a full-fledged conversation and fill out an additional form with them. And that's fine. It's better to get that conversation out in the beginning, at the beginning of the semester, so you're all on the same page and there's no confusion later on. And then there are some instructors that will initiate the conversation once they get your letter, but not all of them will. So it's important that the student is proactive and reaches out to the instructor versus waiting around and then coming back and being like, well, the professor never contacted me after I sent my accommodation letter. And did you reach out to them? Well, no. Okay, well, both ways. It works both ways here. So like if you don't hear from them, you also need to reach out to. So instructors are required to honor the accommodation unless it fundamentally alters the class or the standard learning objectives. So some of you are probably like, fundamentally alters? Like, what are you talking about? What that means is that, for example, audio recording. If you have an accommodation to audio record lectures, but you're in a class that's all discussion based, that will audio recording a discussion-based class can fundamentally alter a class because students may not feel comfortable talking and discussing or disclosing their personal feelings in a class for fear that the recording is going to be misused or something like that. And if that discussion is not going to be used on an exam or in a quiz or anything like that, it's just people personally giving their opinion, then you don't need to audio record it anyways, because the audio recording is only for educational purposes. So, but if you have a professor that's, only does lecture, they're standing in front of the room and you're just audio recording the lecture, and they're like, no, I don't want you to audio record because I don't want my voice out there and I don't want to have to worry about what I say or something like that. That's different. That is a sorry, educational purposes need to be able to let the student audio record the lectures. Um, and so that's why if that you encounter that problem, you have to reach out to our office and then we can step in and we can have the conversation with the instructor to find out what the issue is, rather than you as the student trying to figure that out. So it's just important to reach out to us to um, get some assistance if that's what you need. And the instructors will not be able to provide supplemental instruction. So if you are not understanding a concept in class, going to their office hours and asking them to reteach it to you is not going to happen. Like they do not have the ability to do that. So what you can do is you can go to their office hours with specific questions to say, hey, I didn't understand this part of this. Can you explain this to me? You also can get tutors that are available through academic services. You can also ask a classmate for clarification and also just read up on your textbook to see if maybe you can figure out from your textbook what it is that you're misunderstanding. But instructors don't have the ability to teach individually for each situation if a student doesn't understand something. So. And then now we're at the most important part, which is the ODR registration process. So there's 4 steps. If you have not already done this, these are what you need to do. The first is complete the ODR registration form, which can be found on our website. You will then need to submit documentation of your disability. So some examples would be an ER evaluation report. We do not have a deadline on the age. Like we don't have an age limit for the documentation. It could be from kindergarten to 5th grade. Obviously, we want the most current IEP 504 evaluation report. But if it's from years ago, I mean, you can submit it. We don't necessarily believe that disabilities are just going to up and disappear. So obviously, how you are accommodated might change, but you're still going to have a disability. So the IEP 504, the SAP or the student accommodation plan, or a letter from a provider are some examples of documentation that we ask that were provided. And I believe one of the questions we got asked was about the documentation. So as I mentioned, there's no age limit. We do ask that if you submit an IEP and a 504, that it lists what the disability is. I can't tell you how many I've gotten where it's like other health impairment. And then there's literally nothing else that states what other health impairment. It literally just keeps going OHI, OHI, like throughout the whole thing. And I'm like, what is this? Is this ADHD? Is this cancer? Is this diabetes? What is OHI? Or my favorite, specific learning disability. Okay, understand. Is that in reading, writing, math, auditory? Like all the above? I don't know. Like, so make sure it says something about what the disability is, because a lot of times, even when I look at the accommodations that were provided, they're very general for the sense where it's like, okay, I mean, unless a calculator, I'm not going to automatically assume that that's a math disability, because not every math disability needs a calculator, right? But at the same time, when it comes to reading can be a part of math as well as English. So there's just, if you could just make sure that it lists the specifics information. And if it doesn't, if you could provide the evaluation report, even if it was done in kindergarten or 5th grade or whatever, if you could provide that in addition to the IEP, so that way we have the full information to see how they came to the diagnosis, we can at least figure out from that and the numbers from test results and things like that, what the actual diagnosis was. Check your UMW email is the 3rd step. An ODR specialist is going to review the registration form and the documentation and determine if we need any additional information. And if we don't, then we'll send you an email letting you know that you can schedule an initial meeting if we do need more information, we will also send you an email letting you know that we need additional information so you can upload that information to the Accommodate portal, and then we'll review it again and send an email. And then the fourth is to attend an initial meeting. So that email, let's say you need to go to the Accommodate portal, schedule an initial meeting with an ODR specialist, and then you'll have that meeting, and that's where we'll determine what the appropriate accommodations are based on how your disability impacts you in an academic setting. So identify your resources. So as the student in the center, these are the resources that are available to you at UMW. We're going to break down some of them. Obviously for faculty, know their office hours. They are required to have office hours. It's part of their, oh my gosh, contract. There we go. It's part of their contract. And you know, they're going to be there. You just need to know when they are, and it's on the syllabus. So check that out. Introduce yourself early. And then when you give them the accommodation letter or send the accommodation letter, that's your opportunity to introduce yourself so you can get to know them and they can get to know you and put a name and face together. And then seek their counsel often throughout the semester. Don't wait until the last week of classes or last couple weeks of classes to get assistance with something if it's something you've struggled with the entire semester. The next one is Help Desk, which is located in the HCC in room 112. So they provide support for technology-related problems, and they also answer questions from the UMW community, and their phone number and website are listed there as well. They're a great resource. We use them a lot in our office here. The next one is the Speaking and Writing Center. So UMW has a speaking and writing intensive courses that are required for graduation. And so they have a speaking and writing center here to assist students who may have difficulty with that. So it's located on HCC on the 4th floor. They can assist with class presentations, group projects, and other speaking intensive related assignments, as well as writing intensive assignments. I will say, out of all the universities that I've worked for, and I've worked at some big ones, this is the only speaking and writing center that actually has a room, a couple rooms actually, where you can go in, there's a podium set up, they have a camera, you can go in, you can give your presentation and they'll record it and then you can watch it. I know nobody wants to watch the camera, but it's still helpful. But you can watch the presentation back and sort of see if what it is that you can do, if there's anything else, like how it looks and things like that. And so it's a great opportunity for a student to see what it's like on the other end of watching themselves and what others see. Especially if they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm turning beet red and I feel really anxious. But then when you watch the video, that's not actually what's showing up. And so it kind of can ease some of that concern too. This is also the only university that the Writing Center actually allows students to bring their or can assist with all stages of the writing process. So if you need to brainstorm, if you are trying to figure out how to start your first paragraph or your intro paragraph, right? Or trying to figure out how to annotate something, they will help with the all stages of the writing process. Every other university I've worked at has always been like, I need a full paper completely done and I'll proofread it for you. And that's all they do is proofread. Here, they help with the whole process. And so I really tell students all the time, like, use them. I wish I had this in college. And so there's a link there to schedule an appointment and then also to their website in general. The Tally Center, which is the counseling services here on campus, they are located in Lee Hall at room 106. They have licensed mental health professionals. You can call them at the number listed on this screen, or you can stop by. They do have drop-in hours for students who might be having a crisis moment or just need to do that. The university also offers on-demand telehealth now that's available 24/7 for students through a company called Timely Care. So that's also a great resource for students who might need to get a hold of someone more quickly, or if talking to someone in person is a little more difficult, then they can do the telehealth option. And then there's the website for the Tele Center on this page as well. Academic services. So academic services encompasses a lot of things. They're a great resource. They're located on the 2nd floor of Lee Hall. So the Simpson Library is a resource that they can provide or do provide, and the Simpson Library can assist with helping students with research when it comes to figuring out how to start, where to begin, as well as interlibrary loans. So if there's a book that you need and UMW's library doesn't have it, they can help get it from another library for the student. So that's a great resource. The Digital Knowledge Center provides peer support on digital projects. So I'm not a digital person, but if it's something like a video recording or a podcast and stuff like that, they actually have peer support that can help with that. So they're a great resource. Subject tutoring. So there are free peer tutors that are available for certain subjects. Usually the bigger subjects. Students can reach out to academic services to see if there is a tutor available for a subject if it's not in the list that's currently provided, and academic services can let the student know if either if they're going to be able to find a tutor for that specific class, or they can provide the student with a list of uh, students that have been a tutor in past years to see if they want to reach out to them and want to pay for them to be a tutor. And then the last one is on this page is a Career and Professional Development Center. So this department or center is great for interview prep. Like they help students with preparing for interviews, help with building resumes, and they also help with job search. And they have a job fair. I believe they have it in the fall and in the spring. Toby, correct me if I'm wrong, but they do. Thank you, Jenny. I was like, I remember the spring one, but I was like, did we have one in the fall? So yeah, so they're a great resource for students. I wish students used them more. I will say that for sure. Um, and that is everything. Thank you for your time. Bring on the questions. There's our contact information as well. Who wants? Are you gonna go
Sir,
through? Good.
do you want me to go ahead and read some of the pre-read questions?
Yeah, if you,
Wonderful. I
I
can
can
do that.
also add to them if there's anything missing.
All right, wonderful. I think we already kind of um, talked about documentation quite a bit for what you guys are going to need for, going in and everything like that. That was several of them.
Okay.
One of the questions is if a student has already sent information to the ODR, when will the student be notified whether any further information is needed and or about the accommodations available based on their needs?
Yes, thank you. So for those students who sent in their information in like March, April timeframe, and we were still in the middle of the semester, and it was really busy for us. You probably received an email saying that we would notify you in June. So we will be sending out emails, if not by the end of this week, by Monday, to those students to be like, hey, we need some more information, or hey, you can go ahead and schedule an initial meeting. We typically try to let students know when they first sent their information in if they needed to submit additional documentation. So at this point, you should just be getting an email saying you can schedule an initial meeting. But if for some reason that got missed, we'll send that email too. But then at that point, the instructions on the email are for them to just use the Accommodate portal to schedule a meeting with the ODR specialist. We ask that incoming freshmen wait to schedule their initial meeting until after they have completed their new student orientation. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go on there today and schedule your appointment for after you're doing your new student orientation. We just ask you to schedule it for after that. And the reason is when you have your new student orientation, a lot of questions you might have are actually answered in the orientation for 2 days. And then also typically register for classes if not 5 classes during your orientation. And having those classes in the system helps us to be able to walk you through more of the process for sending your letters to your instructors when we meet versus now trying to talk through it and explain it, and there's no way to move forward, makes it a lot harder to do. So we just ask students to schedule after they've completed their new student orientation. It can be done in person or via Zoom. We do recommend that students not schedule their appointments on their second day of orientation because orientation is a lot. Like I needed a nap after my college orientation days. So you're just sucking in a lot of information, taking it all in, and to then come here and sit for an hour and have to talk to me about your disability and take it all in and then hear all the information I have to say can just be very overstimulating and a lot um, in one day for anybody, but especially for students with disabilities, it can be kind of overwhelming. So if you live out of state and you're like, hey, we're only here for, we completely understand. We're not saying you can't do it. We're just saying if you can hold off and do a Zoom meeting, or if you can just pick a different day, if you live close by and you want to come in person, you're welcome to do that. But just for your own sanity, it can be helpful to wait and do it a day that's not during orientation, but just after orientation.
Wonderful. And then I think the only other one maybe we didn't answer specifically was does ODR offer any scheduled group support sessions, such as how to read your syllabi and calendar your study time this semester?
So ODR actually does not provide that. However, we do have a program that was done through the Dean of Students office called Launchpad that for the first 4 weeks of the semester, and I believe they're going to continue doing it because it got a lot of really good. Jenny's shaking her head, yes. So we are going to continue doing it. But the first 2 semesters this past year went really well, and so they're going to continue it. But the first 4 weeks of the semester, there's a different topic each week. So one week it's like time management, another week is reading the syllabi and going through and picking out the important things and putting that information on your calendar. There's also a week that goes over Microsoft Office and how to use all the fun things there. And then I always forget what the fourth one was. Oh, I believe it was about or like student organizations, like finding a place where you belong, which again, as I mentioned, that's very important to us here at UMW. So we want to give students every opportunity to find where they feel they fit. So, so yeah, that's not through our office, but it will have that available to students in the fall.
And then I think I will pass it to
I have a
Tobias.
couple. I've gotten the brunt of the chat questions, but we do have a couple that I just wanted to throw at you, Jen.
Okay, bring it.
There was one, let's see, about the Tally Center. Let me see if I could find it. Um, do you know offhand if any of the licensed mental health professionals at the Tally Center can prescribe medicine if they're meeting with a student?
I do not believe that they can prescribe medications, but I do know that students have gone to the student health center and talked with them, but that I'm not aware of. I know that there's certain rules and things on that, but I'm not really sure what it is. But what they can do, I know what they can do, is they can help your student find someone nearby who can do just that and help them with prescribing medication. So yeah.
Perfect. And then we had a couple various related ones to just timelines and looking at when we meet with students during the summer. So some and I addressed it, partially earlier, but some people were asking about like deadlines for getting the paperwork in,
Mhm.
and also like when did they hear back? When will we meet with them? Could you just kind of talk about the summer timeline a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So deadline wise, there's never a cutoff line. Accommodations are like it's like open enrollment, right? Like you can submit your information at any point, even during the semester. That's why we have a lot of students who, if they only recently got diagnosed with a disability, they'll be submitting, documentation in like October and getting accommodations through the rest of the semester. So it's students can submit documentation at any point. There's no deadline. I will say if you're looking for housing accommodations, um, there there's no deadline on our end per se, but there is a deadline on housing side. So we do put on our website a deadline just in that, like, we need to have that information so we can give that the response of whether or not a student is approved for an accommodation to housing within the time frame that they need. But that doesn't mean that a student can't submit housing documentation in October to request it for the following spring or even the following year. That is open. But the deadline for housing is one that like is a stickler. So those are mentioned on our website and also housing's website. And then with regards to when you submit documentation, I feel like we're usually pretty quick about it unless people are on vacation or something. Danielle's on maternity leave, family member, family emergency or something like that, might push things back a little bit. But for the most part, when we get documentation in, we review it. Students will get an email from us usually that day, if not the next day, letting them know if they can schedule. And then the student just needs to go into the Accommodate portal and find a time, which I will say with orientation coming up and different meetings and things, the time may not look like there's a lot of availability. Um, but I do promise you that there is availability. You might just have to click on like the following week or something like that. If there's a situation where you're like, this is the only like week that I have because I'm leaving on a trip or I'm doing this or whatever, you can certainly reach out to us and we can see if there's a way that we can like move some things around. We're definitely willing to try and help whenever we can, but just know at the same time that if you're not able to do it before the start of the semester, we still meet with students all year long. And so you can certainly come in and yes, it's not ideal to be doing it the first week of classes, but you can still have the meeting within the first week of classes and your accommodations are implemented that day. Like you will get the accommodations, we'll show you how to send your letters to your instructors, and the student will send the letter to the instructors. And that from that point forward is when the accommodation letter or accommodations are implemented. So fear not. You don't have to wait like 3 months or anything like that to get your accommodations. They are implemented as soon as the letters are sent. So did that cover all the areas you were mentioning, Toby?
I believe so.
Okay.
We have one that asks, do students need to submit housing requests each semester or just once a year? Um, yeah.
So for our office, it's just they submit the request the first time, and unless they're changing the housing accommodation or adding a housing accommodation or something like that, um, you only need to do it one time, and then your housing accommodation is approved through graduation. However, with housing, when you fill out your application, you need to let them know every semester or I guess every year, that you've been approved for a housing accommodation. So whenever that application is filled out, that's when you also need to notify housing. But unless your accommodation is changing or you're adding something, you only have to do it the one time.
And we have one that I think I can answer, but please correct me if I'm wrong in this, Jen.
Mhm.
Correct, for the subject tutoring or peer tutoring, students are able to just reach out directly to academic services. They don't need to reach out like through us. We don't need to be middleman.
No, we do not need to be, and we shouldn't be in that case. Like
Yeah, yeah, you
students should
absolutely
just go because it
can
would just hold it
reach
up.
out
Like, yeah, we don't
directly.
want to hold up that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so they can just reach out to academic services directly, or even just do academic services, and then there's a link that says, I believe it says subject tutoring is the title, and just click on that, and the student just has to read through the classes to see which one there's a tutor available. So yeah.
And to answer the one that just came in, someone asked, where do we send the accommodations to, the teachers or to ODR? So you get the accommodations through us. We, through the meeting and such. I assume what you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, person who sent this. Each semester, when you request your letter through us, you're sending those to the professors because we already know what those are. So you're sending those to the professor for each class.
Mhm. And it's done electronically. So a student doesn't need to hand deliver a piece of paper. There might be a professor here and there that's like, I need a hard copy, but we can show students how to print out a PDF of their letter to do that. But yeah, it's electronically done. And that's why students need to send an email to follow up with the instructor to make sure they got it. So, and I see we have someone's hand raised. Is it Kyra's super fan?
Hi, yes, this is
Hi,
Kira Superfan.
Kira. Hi.
I just have one quick question that followed up on the timing one.
Yes.
So we had submitted previously, and so we already had our interview. And I know that so when do we expect to hear back about the academic accommodations? Is it after they get their schedule, or when do we hear that?
So if you're referring to like a housing accommodation, housing doesn't assign until the end of June. If you're talking for academic,
Yes.
they find out academic on that day. Like I go through and I'm like, these are your academic approved academic accommodations. And then in the week or two before the semester starts, we send an email to students, be like, hey, send your letters to your instructors. And that's when the student goes in and they send their letters to the instructor. But the accommodations, the student is notified, at least if they met with me, I tell them right then and there, these are the accommodations that you're approved for. And so I go through
Okay.
it.
I
So,
may
but
have
if
missed
it's
something then because we had the interview and I don't recall the specific accommodations that were approved, but I'll have to go back and check them.
yours, I believe, if I already met with you, was a housing accommodation. And so housing, um, I'll
Okay.
double check.
Yep. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Did we have another question come through?
Somebody asked, they didn't know beforehand that there were housing accommodations available and they missed the housing deadline. They're asking, if it is too late.
To clarify, deadline to ask, well, if they're an incoming freshman, you're expected to live on campus unless you live in the area and get special permission from admissions to live off campus. But there's a 2-year live on requirement. So housing already knows that you are going to need a spot. So you don't have to worry about not having a spot. If you were like a sophomore or junior, that would be a different story because there's only like guaranteed housing, obviously, for the freshmen the first 2 years. If you're referring to requesting an accommodation, no, it's not too late. You can still submit your housing accommodation request form and any additional documentation for housing accommodations. We would send you an email, let you know we can meet with you. You have the meeting. Housing committee makes the decision. Typically, once a week, we try to meet as a committee to make decisions. But what I will say is that after housing assignments have gone out, which housing typically starts notifying students at the end of June, beginning of July. So once those have gone out, any accommodation requests that come after that are going to be a little bit more difficult to do, especially if, say, your student wants to live with a certain roommate, but is requesting, like, instead of a hall style bath, they want a suite style bathroom, but they want to live with this person. Well, after assignments have already gone out, we can move the student to a hall style bathroom, but their roommate is not an accommodation, so their roommate is not going to be going with them. So then they'd have to decide what's more important, the roommate or the suite style bathroom. Whereas if the accommodation is determined prior to assignments going out, housing can go in and they can move and finagle things around on their end so that the student still keeps the roommate that they want and they also get their accommodation. I hope that answers the question.
I am pretty sure you already said this, but just to clarify, you can still email reslife@umw.edu and ask about accommodations, but it is not guaranteed.
Right. And after assignments go out, it's also like you get kind of put on like a wait list in a sense where it's like if we've filled all of the spot, or not we, they have filled all of the spots up, and there isn't anything available that meets your approved accommodations, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get your approved accommodations. What it means is you got to wait and see if we have anything that housing likes to call as melt, where students either change their mind or they didn't pay some deposit or something like that, and so they end up melting out of the spots, and rooms open up, and so then housing is able to go in and place students there. and get the accommodation that way. But it just takes time. So it's all about understanding it. You're just going to have to wait. And I know that can be kind of nerve-wracking and anxiety provoking for a lot of people, but we can't make a space available. Like we can't kick someone else out of a room when they've already been assigned it. So are there any other questions? I'm going to stop sharing. I think I stopped
Tobias,
sharing.
even though you answered them, did you see any that you think would be sort of best to read out loud just to make sure everybody saw the answer? If you think it's a generally asked question.
Yeah, let me look.
I see one. Is there consent form that students need to sign for parents to discuss, participate with ODR meetings? So, yes and no. But in the sense of if it's an initial meeting and we're meeting with the student for the first time, if you want to be there and the student is there and they're okay with it, then that's fine. Going forward, if you want to be able to communicate to us on the student's behalf, there is a consent to release information. We provide that to the student. It's not, I don't believe it's available on our website, but we provide that to the student to fill out, and then they can upload it to the Accommodate portal. And that would allow us to then be able to talk to you. So it's different than a FERPA waiver. That is something that's with grades and financial aid, and it's different than a HIPAA waiver because that's with medical. It's just our consent form, but it's something that we send out to students after we complete the initial meeting. So, so for you to participate in the first meeting, you just got to get your kid to allow you to do it. And then if they're okay with it, then after that, if there's any other meetings, we just need to have that consent form signed.
And then there was one or two that I do think I'll, answer out loud just for maximum reach for anyone not reading the chat. So someone asked about office hours, and kind of when those happen and if there's multiple days and times. So I do just want to note that most professors do offer multiple days and times to kind of catch different students when they're available. It varies depending on how many courses a professor is teaching. But a lot of professors are very chill and are, if you absolutely have classes during all those times and you really do need help, if you reach out to them and say, hey, I can't make your office hours, but I would like to talk about XYZ, a lot of them are willing to try and schedule something with you one-on-one or even just troubleshoot over Zoom, over email, things like that. Um, Another one, I feel like there was a second one. Somebody asked about how often we meet with people. Sometimes we meet with you for your initial appointment and then we never see you again. And then you graduated, and it's a little bit sad that we never see you again, but it's also fantastic because it means that, you and I got it right on the first go. All your accommodations are working swimmingly. Nobody's, challenging you. It's smooth sailing from your first appointment. That doesn't happen for everyone. Sometimes a new diagnosis will come to light or something just wasn't quite the right fit. And so you're always welcome to come back and schedule with us again, but we don't require like semester check-ins or yearly check-ins. If everything's working great, then you never have to come see us again, but we would love to see you.
Mhm. Yes, I second that. That's one of the pros and cons of our job, right? It's like, oh, we won't see you again if we get it right. But then at the same time, we also want to make sure we get it right so that you have a successful time here and have every opportunity to be successful and show that you can be successful. So uh yeah, I don't think there are any other ones. I think you already asked this question, but I just wanted to clarify one thing. There was someone who mentioned, do we send the accommodation, like where do we send the accommodations to, the teachers or ODR? To clarify, again, like you don't need to send the accommodations to the professors. Like there's no communication that you need to be sending directly to professors. It all needs to come to us for confidentiality purposes. Our system is just our system. No one else has access to it. So you don't need to be sending an IEP, a 504, an evaluation report directly to a professor. You send that to our office and then we work with it. And then the accommodation letter that is provided to the professor just says, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, we have determined that this student is eligible for the following accommodations, and then we just list out the accommodations. So they don't know what the student's disability is unless they decide to disclose that to the professor, which is totally up to them. They're not required to. But it then also lets the professor know that the student does have accommodations and they've met through us and we have signed off on the appropriateness of them and stuff like that. So I think that's all the questions.
Wonderful. Does anybody have any last minute questions coming in before we conclude? We have a couple minutes left on the timer, but if we've been thorough enough,
Right, right.
give
Yeah,
everyone a
I'm trying to think too if there's anything that I've missed. If you're wondering about housing, housing is not our thing, but I will just say I do know housing notifies first years of where they're assigned at the end of June, beginning of July, so a couple more weeks. So hopefully that gives some people who are really anxious about that some help with that. Oh, also orientation. If you feel you need accommodations, you do not need to come through our office for those. You just need to fill out, when you fill out your orientation form, you can just let them know on the form what accommodations you need for that. Orientation will then let us know, hey, these are the people that asked for accommodations, and we'll check to see, have they reached out to us? Do we need to reach out to them just to make sure that everybody is, you know, has the right accommodations for when the semester starts too. But I think that's it.
oh,
We
there's
have
one
a
more.
buzzer beater. We have one more coming in.
Yeah.
Somebody asked if we have quiet testing centers and how do professors coordinate that? So we actually do within our ODR building. So the lovely photos of, Secobec. So if you have a testing accommodation like reduced distraction or extra time, anything testing related, um, that will be part of your conversation at the beginning of the semester with your professor. I know, for example, I studied psychology, and in the psych building, we had testing rooms. And so I usually just met with a professor and she would book, the room in that building. Sometimes if you have a class right after, and so your extra time, may cut into that, or, for any multitude of reasons, you may choose to schedule with us instead, which goes through the same accommodate portal. There would be a tab for testing appointments. And then we have a reduced distraction environment that we facilitate, and we get all of your testing information from your professor and we send it back. And so it would just be between you and professor to make sure that you're still taking it either at the same time and day as the class, or if it needs to be moved, just agreeing with your professor before scheduling with us, like when will you be taking it?
Yeah, and just to I just a little stickler on the word quiet. We can't guarantee 100% quiet. We call it a reduced distraction environment in college because we do our best to reduce this distraction. So instead of being in a classroom with 30 other students, you might be in a room with 8 other students, and we have like cubicle style rooms with everyone's facing the wall and they have the little dividers up. We do also have a white noise machine that we play to sort of help drown out any background noise too. But I just wanted to clarify because quiet is not something that we can guarantee. So we do not have a quiet testing center, but we do have a reduced distraction testing center.
All right. Do we have any other buzzer beaters? Anybody want to get anything under the wire? Just a
If
thank
you,
you.
I know,
Yeah, we
right?
got
I
to
was gonna
thank
say,
you.
if you think of anything else, like if as soon as you get off, you're like, oh, dang it, I missed something. Send us an email. We are ODR at UMW is probably the best one, just because that one goes to our main email account, and then Greta will disperse it to whoever can respond, or Greta might even respond herself, depending on what it is. And so that's the quickest way to get a hold of us. But I think we do a pretty good job of trying to respond pretty quickly, right?
I've
Tobias?
heard only good things from my students, so
Oh, good. Oh,
that's
yeah.
always lovely to know.
Yeah.
Um, but with that, and all of the thanks that you guys are getting, yay, a round of applause for Jen. Yay. And Toby, thank you for covering the chat. But I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. This will be posted as a recording on our admissions you are in website. And I'm going to try to make sure that the individual slides also get posted as well. That's not true of all of the recordings that are posted there, but I'm trying to get that done for the Office of Disability Resources one to be more accessible. So we'll do what we can about that. But thank you all for joining us, and I will release you all now. Have a good night, guys.
Have a good night. Thank you.